Hi. Is it better now? Is my audio and video better than last time?
Your audio is better, but video no.
Oh.
Video is stuck, I think.
Yeah. Is it okay now? Are you able to get my video?
No. We are getting video, but there is a lag. It's breaking. It's not smooth. It's not continuous.
Just give me a second.
Sure.
Hi, Enrique.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon.
Hey, Enrique.
How are you doing, guys? Everything is okay?
All set. Ready to shoot and fire. Okay. I think we already met the whole thing. We are only awaiting now Amruta. She should join. Amruta and Rishikesh, two people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sagar, sorry. I think I've been actually having the backup as well, and I just made sure that the connections are okay. So let me know if the video is okay. Otherwise,
I will say it's better, but then not still smooth as such. To be very honest with you, yeah, but better as compared to earlier part. If you have any options, you can try for that. We still have 10 minutes to go.
yeah,
I
let me
think
just switch.
Mr. Rishikesh is come.
Sure.
Just switch to one more source. Just let me know whether that
Yeah,
works.
and on the screen also, Gopal, you need to adjust a little bit of your screen. You're not in a frame. You're not complete.
Okay, got it.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Hey, Rishikesh.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am audible?
Very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Nice to have you, Rishikesh.
Hi, how are you?
All good.
Okay. So apart from Amruta, everybody's on panel. So first of all, thank you for all your time, cooperation, and inputs. Honestly, this is like we are trying to create that awareness, which we realized right from Alejandro, that right from United Nations itself to ground level, communication is a key. Understanding and talking to each other is a fundamental step. Once we establish communication, then action will come into picture. We all are trying for that a dream society, a dream thing where social aspects will be cherished. And from that perspective, our humble attempts are there, and we are trying to diversify our operations to get hooked up with the global goals. I welcome everybody. I think in next 5-7 minutes. Yeah. As a whole brief, we had a small discussion. Rishikesh, you were not there that day. The more of agenda is we'll be having initially the introduction of consistent as such, what exactly it has been doing and what has planned further as a sort of rebranding. Then we'll be also having recap of past two webinars. Mr. Henrique was there as for GCC edition, and in India it was Rishikesh were there. So what we discussed in just 2 minutes or 2 slides, we'll touch that topic. Then we'll have the discussions open for the preamble for this webinar, and from there it will be 90 minutes complete question and answers. We don't have any presentation as such, anything in between. And after completion of the panel discussion, will be open for question and answers. After question and answers, we'll be having a summary. Hi, Amruta.
Hello.
Hi, Amruta.
So
nice
now
to
we have
have
full
you.
panel.
Sorry,
Hello,
you just need to test me out again. I mean, is my video better now?
Better.
Okay.
Better.
Sorry for this. I think there is some because I've got two backups. I've tried both the backups, and
But this is better, Gopal. Don't worry. This is much better.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think Alka, I will request if you can just brief the whole team. What exactly are the protocols we are supposed to have sorted out when we are supposed to go live, so everybody will be on the same page.
Yes, correct. Hello, everyone. This is Alka here. I'm from the organizer side, CPI Industry. I just wanted to let you know that we will go live 2 minutes before, which is at 1:58 p.m. Dubai time. Are you all able to hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, Alka.
Yes.
So we go live at 1:58 Dubai time. At that point of time, I will make a quick announcement and I would request Sagar, Sarita, Rahul only to be on with the videos turned on. The rest of the panelists, if you could please stop your video and keep yourself on mute. So once CEC is done with their initial presentation, after we go live, Mr. Rahul will be calling out the panelists one by one. And at that point of time, please come back on the screen and just remain online throughout the panel discussion till we end the webinar. All right.
Very well. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
In case you feel that you're having some issues with your videos, please do not panic. Just keep it off, but just make sure that your audio is on and things are all fixed.
Understood.
So at 1:58, I shall announce that we are going live, and then you can keep your video off.
And once I think Rahul will introduce each panelist and each guest. So you can switch on your video so that you can come after your introduction and stay alive after that.
Sagar, may you tell
yes.
me what's the participation confirmed so I have a sense of the audience?
I think 400 people have already registered, and we are expecting more than 200 people will be there. For last 2 hour episodes, our GCC edition, we had continuous attendance of 170 plus. For India edition, we had about 150 in that region. So we are expecting for sure more than 200, 250 as expected. Alaka, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's correct.
Congratulations. Okay. I look forward.
Yes. Alejandro, one small suggestion for you. You're a little dark. If you have some light which will cover your face, it will be better. It's getting shadow effect.
Okay, I will try to improve.
Yes, if you can.
So when we go live, I will try to improve, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we still have 6 minutes in case you all want to still have some further discussions. Please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I would like to say hello to the panelists before we start. It's a pleasure to meet you all live. And yes, I'm in Vienna, speaking personally from my home. So yes, I hope the connection will be stable and good.
So let's hope and pray for the same thing.
Okay. Hello from my side also for all the panelists. I was not there in the last discussion. I'm joining from Mumbai, India, from my home again, and hope to have a fruitful discussion.
Alejandro and all team members, can we just have 1 minute introduction? Last time we had, but whole panel was not there. So we can just have 1 minute introduction so that everybody will be open up to discuss it further openly. So I'll request from Alejandro, if you can just briefly introduce about your experience.
Maybe to not repeat, I would like to bring to this conversation mostly my experience in the UN, but as you all know, the UN works very much within a family of development partners. So the UN is just a good middle point of many partners in government, private sector, civil society. So I will be coming mostly from my experience point of view. I will try to be light and a little bit more from, as I say, from the accumulated experience. Of course, this subject has many technical aspects to it, but for this webinar, I will try to be just more personal. But nice to meet you all. That's from my side.
Yeah. Just to add on that, I think Mr. Alejandro was part of writing the SDG 9 as a draft.
Yes. Well, UNIDO is being the Industrial Development Organization, had a hard time in the last 20 years, 30 years, mobilizing funding and interest for industry. But today there is an SDG 9, and we have a fourth industrial revolution with many fascinating and exciting frontiers and technologies. So industry today is a friend to development.
Dominic, your lovely way of introducing. You're on mute.
I'm very pleased to be here today. I missed the last session. I was not available. My name is Dominic McPolin. I'm the chief of the Central Planning Office of Bahrain, and we deal with all infrastructure, public and private, oil and gas, all infrastructure planning, design, construction, asset protection, everything to do with infrastructure under one roof here. We have a set of planning processes that we follow, and I'm the chief of the Central Planning Office. I'm very interested to hear about goal number 9, innovation. This is my formula, we've discussed it. Innovation by itself is one thing, application by itself is a second thing, but the most important thing from my perspective is regulation, is the R. Innovation and application multiplied by R equals change. And we are working on regulations to help innovation, because we found that the path to success is difficult unless government steps up and to the line and takes a lead in providing the context for innovation. And that's why we're focused on things like district cooling regulations to allow industry to participate more fully and to deliver those innovations that we so desperately need in meeting these goals.
Thank you, Dominic. Henrique?
Yes. So thank you all for the introductions. I'm also happy to be here with you today. My name is Henrique, and I work at REEM, which is essentially the energy agency for the Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah in the UAE. And we have essentially a responsibility to implement and to drive the energy efficiency and renewables strategy with the aim of achieving a certain reduction by 2040. So working in the government side, but coming from the industry gives me kind of a nice perspective on both angles.
Gopal?
Yeah, very quickly.
Sorry to interrupt, gentlemen. We'll be going live in a few seconds. So
Okay.
Could we request the panelists to please switch off your video now? Only Sagar, Sarita, and Rahul will remain, please. Thank you. Good luck to everyone. So I'm clicking on broadcast now. We go live right away.
Thank you.
Ella!
Good afternoon, namaskar, and assalamu alaikum to all the guests and all the attendees of Securing Sustainable Future 2020 Synergy Edition. On behalf of Team Consistent, I, Sarita, would like to welcome you all to today's webinar. Today, we have with us our founder and managing director, Mr. Sagar Kulkarni, and our senior mechanical engineer, Mr. Rahul Shetty, as the webinar chair.
Okay, Rahul. Rahul, you may begin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Namaskar. Assalamu alaikum to all the guests and attendees of Securing Sustainable Futures 2020 Synergy Edition. Today, on behalf of Team Consistent, I would like to welcome all our guests and attendees to today's webinar. Today, we have with us our founder and managing director, Mr. Sagar Kulkarni, as webinar host, and senior mechanical engineer, Rahul Shetty, as the webinar chair. We are having our expert guests with us, and Mr. Rahul will be introducing them in a short while. We'd like to thank you all for your active participation in the webinars being conducted by Consistent. We have received an overwhelming feedback regarding the information shared on this platform by our expert panelists. It was a humble attempt from our side to facilitate the information sharing and creating an awareness. We would like to thank all the panelists and all the attendees for supporting Consistent in this humble initiative. We would also like to thank CPI Industry, our media partner, as well as DStylio, our brand and concept partners. We now begin the concluding session of this webinar series, the Synergy Edition. But before moving ahead with the panel discussion, I would like to brief you about Consistent Engineering Consultants and its expanding horizons in the sustainable development. The journey of Consistent began in Dubai in the year 2007. In 2008, we got engaged with the industrial projects. In 2009, Consistent expanded its horizons to the African countries by booking projects in Nigeria and Seychelles. In 2010, Consistent started its operations in India, Mumbai, as a partnership firm. 2011, Consistent reached the milestone of booking 100 projects. 2012, we booked projects in Djibouti and other GCC countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain. 2013, Consistent received the ISO 9001 certification for quality management system. 2014 saw us reach the milestone of booking 200 projects. The partnership firm we had started in India was converted to Consistent Engineering Consultants Private Limited in the year 2015. 2016, the team strength of Consistent reached 100 along with booking of 300 projects. In 2017, Consistent got engaged with the first solar PV project as well as booking of 400 projects. In 2018, Consistent was engaged in the energy retrofit projects and booking of 500 projects. Last year, 2019, we got engaged in an environmental project of e-waste collection drive and also booking of 600 projects. This year, we are looking forward to the sustainable approach in all our projects. Team Consistent started analyzing the impact of its work on the environment in 2017 after a thorough study of the Sustainable Development Goals. We realized the importance of adopting new practices for sustainable MEP development, energy conservation, and renewable energy solutions. Thus, we expanded our horizons from being a conventional MEP consultant to a sustainable development professionals. This necessitated a fundamental shift in our approach, in our principles, and our brand. Let's take a look at this shift through a short audiovisual clip.
Mankind has come a long way from being an advanced species to now wielding technology that takes us to the farthest reaches of the universe. But in the process, we have pushed the Earth way beyond its limits. Climate change, deforestation, oil spills, fires. Our actions have harmed this planet in every way possible, and we are now suffering the payback. In the quest for development, we lost the harmony with nature. It's time we correct our actions. Sustainability is the answer. At Consistent Engineering Consultants, sustainable enhancement lies at the heart of everything that we do. With sustainable MEP design, energy management, and efficient building design solutions, we infuse conscious living in every space. We make your residences, your offices, as well as commercial spaces like hospitals, universities, and data centers energy efficient, so that people and businesses can thrive while furthering the Sustainable Development Goals. Our globally certified professionals work with a unified vision to further yours. Our sole mission is to empower people to bring in a sense of accountability, striving to make every day better, consistently.
So, this is how we are transforming into a sustainable brand. Awareness is the bridge between conscious choices and reaction. When awareness enlightens the mind, things undergo transformation. And transformation of the enlightened minds of Team Consistent perceive the drive towards sustainability. We firmly believe that each development project needs to establish a balance between all the stakeholders in the environment. The theme of sustainability touched our belief as it encompasses the basic pillars of environmental, social, and economical balance. To change the world around us, we need to change ourselves. Team Consistent carried many brainstorming sessions to bring about a metamorphosis from MEP engineers to responsible set of sustainable professionals. This year, the pandemic created a panic at all levels. The industry and the project indicated an economic slump. However, Team Consistent looked at the silver lining even in the darkest of the moment. We are proud of our team for taking up the responsibility of improvising their skill set at an organizational level, as well as upgrading themselves in terms of knowledge and qualifications at individual levels. On company level, we are going ahead with ISO 9001, Quality Management System, 14001, Environmental Management System, ISO 45001, Occupational Health and Safety Management System, and ISO 50001 for Energy Management System. On individual levels, the certifications available will be Lead GA, Lead AP, BD plus C, O&M, Well AP, Energy Modeling, CFD Analysis, BIM Modeling, Solar PV certifications, Certified HVAC Designer, Certified Measurement and Verification Professional, Building Energy Assessment Professionals, Healthcare Facility Design Professionals, High Performance Building Design Professionals, Building Commissioning Professionals. Few of the certifications are already achieved and some are in the process. The team had changed its outlook towards the project and is now focusing on establishing a balance between the human demands and the planet requirements. Apart from its own learnings, the awareness drive was created in the locations for India as well as the GCC region, which was supported by the thought leaders of the industry. We are grateful to all of them for their valuable time and insights, and we vow to continue our sustainable journey even further. Team Consistent is taking a sustainability pledge today.
It is a way of life.
It's not a cause anymore,
but a much needed change.
The pandemic has altered our lives today.
But the effect of climate change
have been getting worse since decades.
It's time to rise above differences.
To work together
for the greater good.
To create a change.
And to spur moments.
It's time to set a new course.
Let us pledge to shift our way of life and evolve and leave something behind as a legacy worth living for.
Let's join the hands to make sustainability the new normal.
I would now request Mr. Rahul to take the things further and introduce the expert speakers of the Synergy edition. Rahul.
Thank you, Ms. Sarita.
Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon to you all. I am Rahul Shetty from Consistent Engineering Consultants, and I welcome you once again to the Securing Sustainable Futures 2020, the Synergy edition. I also have with me Mr. Sagar Kulkarni, who is the Managing Director of Consistent Engineering, who will be hosting the discussions today. Today we have distinguished speakers from ICD Impact, who is also a former United Nations representative, government representatives from the Ras Al Khaimah Municipality, Ministry of Works Bahrain, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change from India, and then we have distinguished speakers from GPCI, and we have a sustainability expert with us. Now let me introduce you to our speakers of the day. Firstly, Mr. Alejandro Veracasa, who is from ICD Impact and who has been formerly engaged with the United Nations. He has worked over 25 years in many countries with UNIDO and other United Nations organizations, development agencies, foundations and governments in promoting impact investments and international business collaboration for improvements in innovation, efficiency and productivity. Through his work in Africa, Asia and Latin America, he has gained a deep understanding of the private sector's capacity in delivering power and sustainable impacts if given the appropriate conditions. He has worked in establishing enabling environments and access to finance schemes for new technologies associated with the climate change revolution and the fourth industrial revolution. Our second speaker of the day is Mr. Enrique Pereira, who is from Ras Al Khaimah Municipality. He is a senior manager for energy services at the Energy Efficiency and Renewables Office, REEM, at Ras Al Khaimah Municipality. He is responsible for all building retrofits and energy management activities in the Emirate. He holds a master's degree in electrical engineering from Porto University with specializations in IT and energy. With more than 20 years of experience in engineering, Mr. Enrique has been involved in hundreds of energy efficiency and energy management projects to reduce global energy consumption and improve efficiency and sustainability of buildings and organizations. Prior to joining the Ras Al Khaimah Municipality, he has worked with ESCOs and other energy sector companies in C-level, senior level roles to support the deployment of building retrofit projects and achieve the ambitious sustainable goals of the United Arab Emirates. Our next speaker of the day is Mr. Dominic McPaulin, who is from Bahrain Ministry of Works. Mr. Dominic is the Chief Central Planning at the Ministry of Works, Bahrain. Dominic is a chartered town planner with 2 degrees in city planning, specializing in infrastructure. He is also a chartered planning and development surveyor, holding the postgraduate professional entry exams of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. In addition, he holds the RICS Postgraduate Diploma in Project Management, the ACCA Postgraduate Certified Diploma in Accountancy and Finance, and an MBA in Construction and Real Estate. He has worked at the ministerial level in Bahrain for 32 years, having previously worked in the UK, Germany, and Iraq. Our next speaker, Mr. Rishikesh Kolatkar, who is from MOEFCC. Mr. Rishikesh is MD of Building Environment Private Limited from India. He is an architect and he has done his master's in environmental planning at Center for Environmental Planning and Technology, Ahmedabad. He has been working in the field for the last 21 years, and also he has been involved as an environmental expert on highways, ports, industrial estates, synthetic organic chemical factories, automobile sector, renewable energy, townships, and so on. He has also worked for various funding agencies like Asian Development Bank, KfW, and JICA. He's on the World Bank panel as an environmental expert. Our next speaker is Mr. Gopal Krishnan from GBCI. As a managing director for Southeast Asia and Middle East, Mr. Gopal Krishnan manages business and market development of LEED and other GBCI rating systems for the region. His expertise includes corporate strategy, international market expansion, branding, and business unit creation. An alumnus of College of Engineering Guindy and IIM Kolkata, he has more than 30 years of corporate experience in Asia Pacific and Middle East regions. Our next speaker is Ms. Amruta Shimkalyani, who is the founder of Sustainability Tribe and also the Zero Waste UAE Social Initiative. She is a sustainability advisor, speaker, and educator, originally a mechanical engineer, later certified as sustainability consultant. Amrita is a sustainable design and built environment expert. Over the last 13 years, she has been professionally contributing to sustainable development in the Middle East. Moreover, for the past 11 years, Amrita has inspired climate change and played the part in bringing a positive social behavioral change through her work of educating society about climate change and sustainability. Amrita is also advisor to international environmental organizations and is honorary judge at many international sustainability awards. With that, I would request our managing director, Mr. Sagar, to summarize the learnings from the previous webinars in brief so that we can proceed with today's agenda.
Thank you, Rahul. And first of all, good afternoon to all the panelists and the attendees and guests. Thank you for supporting the drive. We had two sessions about the sustainability development, India edition and a GCC edition. We'll just recap what exactly was discussed so that we can have a connect to take it further. During last two sessions, we clearly understood the first need to bring any change or any development is need of awareness. Hence, whatever the myths pertaining to sustainability were there, we discussed about that it is technology oriented, it's costly, it's expensive, it's gadget. So we are talking sustainability as a holistic development in which we are talking about environmental, social, and economical aspect. To move further and understand where do we stand, the thing which we discussed was a benchmarking requirement. So there are various tools are available. We had a wonderful contribution from GBCI where they mentioned the RSCO2 platform. So once we have establishing the benchmarking system, which is possible because of the data management, which is the outcome of fourth industrial revolution, that whatever data we have, we are able to map it and able to compare. So benchmarking was a base to move further for the improvement. Then we also discussed about the various sustainable development goals United Nations has established, right from the zero hunger to the innovations. So every country, based on its demography and the forward approach, they identify the SDGs, associated targets, and work on the program. And every year, the NVR is established. That is, national voluntary reports are established by every country to show the compliances towards the SDGs. After identification, the major task comes into picture for implementation and monitoring. Only government making policies will not work. The whole chain system has to follow the vision given by established by the governments. We always mention action without vision is nightmare, and vision without action is daydreaming. Both have to work hand in hand to go and achieve the desired goals. With that, we moved further. So for achieving that, we are talking about initiation of the action of the SDGs or the action plan, proper implementation. It needs a regulatory network, it needs technological network, it needs a project network, it needs financing. So once we get all these factors together, we'll talk about administration, how to execute the project and monitor the project to achieve the sustainability. Predominantly, when we talked about the SDGs pertaining to construction, energy, and industry sectors, we are having 6 SDGs. We are like SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, where we talk about energy efficiency and the renewable energy. SDG 9 talks about industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And today, fortunately, we have Mr. Alejandro, who has been involved in drafting the SDG 9 with United Nations. So certainly we'll take some inputs from Mr. Alejandro. SDG 11 talks about sustainability cities and communities. GBCI has come out with a platform which we discussed last time, where they are talking about certified and LEED certified cities and communities. We are talking about SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production. Everything is all about consuming and producing. In capitalist economy, it was just getting produced. And if you don't consume, it was a linear economy getting into the West. So we discussed that we need to have circular economy. We discussed 3 R's, that is reduce, reuse, recycle. 3 R's are getting converted to 6 R's, which is reduce, reuse, recycle. Then we are talking about redesign, remanufacture, and retrofit. So we discussed 6 R's. And most important thing where everybody is getting focused is the climate change. So these are the aspects we discussed. In today's scenario, what we are going to discuss is about renewable energy and energy efficiency, what can be done, climate action, what is required, where do we stand, water and waste management, what are the challenges, what does the SDG say, what does the United Nations is looking for, what does government are looking for, what are the organizations looking for, how we can contribute as an individual in the compliance of SDGs. As we said, being chain, every link has to work towards it. Strength of the chain is equal to the weakest link in the chain. So how an individual can also contribute, we'll discuss on that. We are talking about infrastructure and industry. When we talk about climate change, pollutions, apart from the residential sector, the key factor comes as industry and infrastructure, which are blamed to be the damagers of the environment. So what exactly are the outlooks of United Nations that we look into, how industries can play a role, how environmentalists are looking from the aspect of industry. To do all these things, we have a bigger challenge, and that too, it is getting serious now with pandemic condition, modes of funding. How all these things can be made possible and what sort of funding is available. Unless until we have those tools, we will not be able to lead to the end destination. And lastly, we'll talk about how year on year we are supposed to perform, or we are performing as a nation, we are performing as a community, we are performing as a globe towards the monitoring of SDGs and implementation of that. With that, I will request Rahul to take it further and start the panel discussion.
Thanks, Mr. Sagar. Sustainability is no more a choice, but it's an effort for the planet to sustain. The effects and aftermaths of climate change can be quite evidently seen across the globe, right from the forest fires in Australia and the US to the droughts and floods that we have recently seen in South and Southeast Asian countries. Atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, which primarily come from the burning of fossil fuels, have risen 40% since the pre-industrial times, from 280 ppm to more than 400 ppm, having a detrimental impact on human health and well-being. Now, with the brief that we have received from Mr. Sagar about the proceedings, we'll start the discussions today. So my first question to Mr. Alejandro will be that he has been very closely involved in drafting of the SDG 9 related to industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So what was the thought process that had gone in drafting of this SDGs? Mr. Alejandro?
Yes, good morning. Good morning to the team there, Consistent Engineers. It has been an interesting build-up to this webinar, and thank you for this invitation. I find very impressive the journey you have had, from vision to action, as you say, Sagar. To your question, and for the audience, the drafting of SDG 9, which is a combination of various aspects. On one side, it includes the all-important aspect that we all are confronted with, called infrastructure. So infrastructure together now with another component of industry, inclusive and sustainable industry, and together with the innovation component, this group of indicators become a very powerful proposition for development. On the industry side, there are two indicators that are for the first time now being seen as a tool for development. If I may reflect a little bit, many, many years ago, of course, industry was the culprit, was the enemy for development. It was very much the blame for climate action and so forth. So today, with SDG 9 and with industry playing a strong role in this proposition for development, industry with the new technologies in the fourth industrial revolution is today a friend for building the sustainable future. So SDG 9, for all purposes, for the audience, it's a big feat for the private sector, for the big bulk of SMEs out there. Today, private sector and the industrial world is seen as a solution and not a problem. And today, I think this webinar, we will discuss some of these technologies that are emerging to be part of the solution. So I think for me personally, at my age, I find it interesting to work with industry while industry was seen, as I say, as the problem. And today industry is seen as a friend for development. That is a big shift in this SDG number 9.
Thanks, Leandro, for sharing that. We were all talking about United Nations and SDGs, but really would like to know more when you draft the policy or when you draft the target, what exactly thought process goes in behind that?
Sure. Of course, behind everything there is, like every good process, requires lengthy consultation and lots of good evidence. So data was key. We had to prove that industry was a friend. We had to prove that everything that industry proposes through the new technologies is going to be ultimately a good positive impact. So this aspect of proving that industry is a development partner was a whole agenda of not convincing, but through hard evidence, data, I say, showing the benefits. But of course, there was a very strong shift in the world in 2015. When the MDGs were established, they excluded industry. I recall the conversations back then. But what had happened in the 15 years was that it was evident that countries like China and the Asian tigers have developed through industry and have developed also socially to a large extent positive. So this has not been an ideological model. It was an industrial economic model. And in 2015, I think the world and the convening powers, so to say, were aware industry had the evidence there. Asia, in particular China, was showing that industry can be a strong ally for development.
For sure.
So the evidence, Sagar, just to be very simple, a lot goes into drafting any global agreements, but at the end of the day, it was the evidence visible in some Asian countries that made the big acceptance for industry to be a partner for development.
Thanks, Leandro. As you rightly mentioned, in I think 2000, the Millennium Development Goals were established. So from that till 2015, there was hardly any movement. But once we started generating the data and information, again, I'll say thanks to fourth industrial revolution, where we can started generating the data and sorting it out, it took a real push further. So when you draft, what are your expectations sitting in the United Nations from the governments? What do you expect from the governments?
I think one thing I realized in this SDG movement for all the SDGs, this was a strong global concerted effort. Although there were certain interests, the African countries had certain interests, of course, Europeans had their interests, there's always interest. But at the end of the day, what prevailed, I think, most amongst all governments was the need to do something together. I don't know if this environment exists today, 2020. I'm speaking about 2012, 11, when the drafting was going on. 14, of course, when things were materializing. But the drafting process, we were living a world where there was another view of working together. That moment, I think, has been lost. We are entering a new world today. I don't know how these SDGs could have been approved so well under these current environments. This tells you a lot of what goes behind for these things to really happen. It's a little bit of a magical timing of so many countries.
So basically, once the SDGs are drafted and then there have been signatories, I think 193 countries have been signatories for the SDGs. Now, with current scenario, there are few move outs. It's okay. We are supposed to look at the positive side of it.
Yeah.
So once they are drafted, various countries have adopted. Henrique, when we are talking about implementation, what are the SDGs which Ras Al Khaimah municipality as such has adopted? Has it adopted holistically, or we are focusing on certain SDG as a priority?
Thank you, Sagar. First of all, thanks everybody that joined for today's talk. I think for us, you know, more than a specific sustainable development goals that we focus on is more kind of a overview of an holistic, you know, approach where we take different elements that contribute to what we have defined as the energy efficiency and renewables strategy 2040. So it's a kind of a vision statement, kind of a roadmap, if you want, aligned with, of course, the different vision statements for federal government and other emirates that kind of transport us from a place where we were or where we are, generically speaking, to a place where we want to be, which represents an improvement. No? And this improvement will be felt at many different levels. It will be felt directly as an improvement in the way that we use resources, in our case, natural resources, to generate energy and to a large extent, water also. It will be felt indirectly in the different layers of society, of competitiveness, jobs being, you know, available, better quality of life, better financial status. And it will also be reflected a little bit on the environment that we are in. Also, we are not an isolated emirate in an isolated country. We are part of something that is a little bit bigger. We are part of a region. We are part of different multilateral, you know, agreements, different cooperations. And these we hope also to influence others and to learn from others on how we can proceed and evolve on this roadmap that we have defined for ourselves. I think the Sustainable Development Goals also kind of define that, where we should aim at on this kind of roadmap over time. And we try to take the best out of them that we can without actually particularizing them. Generic speaking, us as an emirate, we would be aligned with most of them, if not all of them, to a wider or to a lesser extent.
Correct. Dominic, having the SDGs and converting that into regulations, I believe you have been associated with implementation of a few goals over there. So what approach Bahrain as a country been taking in having this sustainable development in terms of the energy, in terms of the waste management? What are the actions Bahrain is taking?
It's about one thing, and that's leadership. And the goals have been embraced, and leadership has been involved at the highest level with endorsing these goals, which means that, you know, as a government employee all my life in different governments in different parts of the world, this is very important. It's essential. It's the framework within which the market works, within which individuals work. But I just want to say one thing about what Alexandro said. I want to pick up on one of those issues just in this discussion. I think we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's like a tsunami. The next one is a recession, and the next one is climate change. Each one is going to be bigger and more impacting. We have learned two lessons, two very simple lessons. And we didn't need to study this. We didn't need to form committees, and we didn't need to do much. We learned two lessons. The first one is the need for global solidarity. In actual fact, the development goal, the sustainable development goal on cross-country partnerships, it's with us because we are now globally facing something common to us, and it's teaching us. And please, the first speaker talked about learning and changing ourselves. We are being changed, whether you like it or not, whether you're switched on to this or not, whether you're reading the papers or not, you are changed today, 100% guaranteed. Everyone listening to this, you are changed today. And one of the things that has changed is our global perspective. We used to be, I think it was Eisenhower said, all politics is local. It starts with your house, your street, your neighborhood, your city, your country, and then the world. It's actually reversed now. We have learned the lesson that we are global, and we have to have that solidarity if we're going to face the next thing is a recession, a global recession, and it has to be an international response. The second thing after this is the real impact is still to come from climate change, and it has to be a global. So here we have us, the human actors here, changed by COVID. The second thing that changed us with COVID is that we were taught the lesson that we cannot just behave as individuals. As individualism is out the window now, I'm sorry to say, if you don't get with the program, you're going to be in trouble. The program is collective. Now, if you look at the sustainable energy goals, we don't have to teach this. We're being taught again that community and is actually more important as an instrument to move forward with these goals rather than as individuals. Rather than which bin you're using to put your plastic in, it is bigger than that. It is a community response. And that's why I'm particularly interested and have been active in the energy field in what I think it was this UN Habitat report, the future district energy as opposed to individual energy. You see how it's all coming together? It's all fitting. The jigsaw puzzle is suddenly coming together that, you know, we have to think. We're being forced to think as communities, as cities, collectively, not as a bunch of individuals doing our own thing, making our own decisions, suiting ourselves first. And actually, I'm more optimistic now after COVID. I'm sorry to have to say this, but maybe this is the Irishman in me or something. I actually see a silver lining in this, in that it has changed us and changed us for the better in order to face the realization of these goals.
For sure. The pandemic has really had a long-lasting and probably irrecoverable and irreversible impacts on the whole scenario. If you ask today, we used to have conferences in person. Today, Alejandro is sitting in Vienna, you are in Bahrain, I'm in Dubai, and Mr. Gopal is in India. This all aspect and the realization of the industrial revolutions which is moving in a very fast way. And as rightly mentioned, we have to embrace it. If we don't embrace, we'll be thrown out. While saying so, when we talk about sustainability, the communication is a key. The policies are getting drafted at a United Nations level. Governments are adopting it and framing the regulations and policies. Still, to get it to the ground level, there's a lot of work needs to be done, because forming a policy itself is a challenge, but executing the policies and implementation has a bigger challenges. So I believe the organizations like GBCI, they are working towards it. They have earlier working on the buildings, and now the horizons are increased. They're talking about energy sector. They're talking waste management. They're also talking about smart cities. So, Mr. Gopal, can you please tell us what sort of initiative GBCI is taking for the communication and creating awareness and education for the sustainable goals and the framework what GBCI has?
Yeah, thank you, Sagar. And first of all, let me appreciate Consistent Concern for putting together this platform, and more importantly, a very impressive panel. So I hope I look forward to enjoying this session. So talking about awareness, I think that's very critical. So every year, USGBC and GBCI, we do a quantitative research in trying to understand what are the obstacles to sustainability and what are the impediments and what can accelerate the adoption. So, the one what we did last year is still incomplete because we're just going through, but let me quote what we did between the end of 2018 and early 2019. So one of the key factors still remains awareness. So in answer to that, what we did, and this is not something which we did in 2019, but I'm just giving you the last, let's say 29, 30 years of our existence in planet Earth. So what we did was to take all that 30 years of wisdom, which resides in us, which resides in our stakeholders across the world, and we put it into our education platform. In your slide, Sagar, you talked about your team, which actually passed a lot of lead exams. So what we did was this particular education, we first converted that into a module. It is now an online module. It can be accessed by a student, a working professional, a government employee, because today everybody's in the game. As Dominic said, now is the time for us to act together. So it's just not about the fact that only project teams, architects, designers need to know about sustainability. No, it is today starting at the top. It has to be at the CXO level. It has to be everybody, right? It has to be the employee, because I was talking in a town hall last week in an organization which actually achieved a platinum certification. So I told all the employees, now your organization has invested in sustainability. So what does it mean for you? It means that you should be aware. Sustainability should not stop just at your offices. Now, what about your residences? What about the transit which you may take to work? It may be the airport, it may be the seaport. Now, it may be the school, it could be the college, it could be the city you're residing in, right? So I think, yes, awareness is very critical. And so we approach education in two buckets. One is the student community, because we strongly believe that the architectural students and the engineering students, can gain, even if they're not going to take sustainability as their career. But I think it's important for them to understand. And we have seen a lot of momentum coming out of that particular space. So we have a very structured program. They can go through the education, they can write exams, they can become credential holders and all that. But the other key thing is also the working professionals. Now, you and me, or let's say the 250 odd attendees here, we may be architects, we may be engineers, and we might have passed out years back, and we may be working in office. It's important that we go through the education, and not because to just attain a static knowledge, but it's all about continuous education, right? So because sustainability is today growing every day. Today, whatever changes, I think is happening every second. And again, as Dominic said, COVID has again brought a very different dimension, which we were not aware. Now, 5 months back, we did a conference in Bangalore on sustainability. Now, if I have to redo that conference, every theme will be different. It's a very dynamic world, right? So that's one part of the education. But more importantly, what we have done, and which we believe is going to impact society, is we have now made sustainability modules for schools. It can be the grade 5, 6, 7 students. And these are very nice video modules on simple things like energy, water. So what we do is we encourage these schools to adopt these, convert that into small scale experiments at a school level. It need not be very grandiose. It can be a simple rainwater harvesting structure at a school, a waste management. So let the students read the theory, convert that into projects, right? So you're looking at multiple levels: schools, your higher education, as well as your working professionals. That's the way we have layered education, and I think that has actually given a lot of momentum to this particular movement.
Very rightly said, Gopal. The education right from the early age is very important. We have seen fantastic results which Sweden has been given. In those Scandinavian countries are having very fantastic happiness index and social index. So there, this value part of it, or energy, or the waste management has been introduced at a very early age at a school. So at school, whatever you're creating as a waste, you are supposed to handle it, you are supposed to segregate it. So once it has become part of value system, it has become part of habit, it has become part of behavior. So if you look, their waste management system has been amazing. On the contrary, in today's scenario, Sweden has been importing the waste instead of importing the fossil fuels. So yeah, it makes a lot of difference when you start educating at very early age. With that, when we discuss about United Nations policies getting formed at a government level, things are getting percolated and into policies. There are independent bodies which are having educational drive. So Rishikesh, when we have framework, and actually when we'd like to implement that on a project level, what challenges do you face after all these things?
Hi, good afternoon. As I just said,
I think some issue with.
Sorry, I lost. I think.
Right.
First of all, thank you for arranging such a good conference and good panel members. My experience lies in working at, I can say, end of pipe situation where I am right now.
We have further pipeline pending. Don't worry. We have Amruta who talks about individuals.
Yeah. So when we look at the final implementation of the law at the bottommost level of this chain, we see a lot of challenges. Obviously, we see there are some of the individuals who are investors who do not see the complete picture. Yes, but our experience with large houses is that they at least know that such and such goals are there, and some of their internal policies. Though the person who would be sitting in front of me would crib, but the agency, but the big house will implement some of these aspects, irrespective whether it is temporary loss or temporary profit. If you see one-time investors kind of thing, then obviously the proportion gets diluted.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say 30-40%. I would put my percentage where these things would be implemented at the ground level.
No, even in India webinar, we had Mr. Samir Sinha who was quite vocal about it, saying that if you don't adopt it now, you'll get washed out. Yeah. So you need to adopt it. Amruta, now here we are talking about United Nations, governments. We discussed about at a business level what happens. Still, when we talk about implementation, there is a gap between government policies, the businesses, and at a consumer level. So what is your experience when you deal with sustainable aspects in terms of waste management, in terms of the energy efficiency? What is that your experience, and how do you address it?
Hello, everyone. First of all, it's really interesting event and such a esteemed panel here. All my fellow speakers have already kind of touched all the different aspects, like you mentioned, Mr. Sagar. I would just go back briefly where I started my career around 13 years back. So GBCI is here. I'm a lead AP, and I started working as a sustainability consultant back then. And I realized two things, which we discussed, even Rishikesh discussed, and you discussed, that one of the thing is how to make sure that we are converting our clients to go for, let's say, green building or more sustainable features. And that's when what basically is an important factor there, that client is aware of the adverse impact of business as usual right now, and why they should invest, what is in it for them. So the education and awareness. And at the same time, I was thinking at the time, even if we design a building, let's say, or it applies to any business for that matter, but even if we design, implement sustainability, but what if the end user, the consumer, or a normal person doesn't understand how to use it? Just a simple example. For example, if you provide a recycling system in a building or in office, what if the staff or the resident doesn't understand how to use it? We are not really going to get the positive impact we are looking for. And that's when I realized that it's not really enough just to look at sustainability from the perspective as a professional or at an industry level. We have to kind of go to the grassroots. And that's what I think we have been doing, like through Sustainability Tribe. It's 11 years. I've been educating people, making them aware how they can live sustainable.
When you say educating people, what exactly do you carry out some campaigns, etc.? Because
exactly. So what happens is I started writing. It was just a website. It started getting popular locally as well as internationally. So now what I do is, apart from just the writing or guidebooks, I host community events. I give lectures. I also do that as a consultant. I go to the businesses. I train their staff. Generally, when I work with businesses, you were asking about waste management system. So I would just say one of the company I was working with here locally in UAE, we realized they were attracted towards the Zero Waste UAE initiative I started. So they were thinking that we are generating a lot of waste inside our office. How can we reduce the waste and maybe even achieve zero waste? That was their second kind of more ambitious goal. So when I looked at their entire system, I realized that one of the thing was the staff was ordering meals. So there was a lot of single-use plastic coming to the office. It actually connected to the inadequate pantry essentials. So we had to fix that. Then even after the proper recycling system was implemented and a bit of training was done as part of the system, we realized we are still not achieving enough results. Then the need of having some kind of inspirational talk or discussion with the staff, and that's what we did. So I kind of had this talk with them where I told them about climate change, sustainability, and how it affects to them at an individual level, what they can do. And that's when the office started seeing more positive results towards them.
But by and large, see, we are professionals. We understand, we are talking about sustainability, we are talking about goals, and we are talking about zero waste and responsible consumption, etc. But people who are not from the engineering industry or not from the construction industry, are they aware that something like this is happening at a global level? Is that awareness there in the community?
I would say when I started off 11 years back, obviously the awareness was very low. People didn't even know.
We are back when SDG was not there. We are talking about 2015.
Correct. So even the sustainability word was so alien. People always used to ask me, what do you do? What do you do at work? Like as a sustainability consultant, what is your job? People used to think I'm just writing some documents, and it was difficult for people to understand. It goes into design and sourcing material and things like that. But the awareness now, I really have, like, my personal observation is, since the SDGs are there and Paris Agreement has been signed, more and more people are, more and more media is talking about sustainability and climate change. More and more people are getting more interested. And I would just like to highlight one point here. Actually, Mr. Gopal Krishnan already mentioned about the education at early age in schools. One incident I want to highlight here. One of the school, I actually gave a talk about sustainability as a visiting lecturer. And one of the supermarket, I was buying fruits and vegetables and things I generally buy in my own container because I live a sustainable and zero waste lifestyle myself. And I was buying, let's say, some grains or something in my container, and not many people still do that in UAE. So generally people feel that was wrong with this lady. So one of the women walked up to me and she said, "Are you the one who gave lecture in my son's school?" And I'm like, "What was that?" And I just wanted to share this experience, how even kids are now inspiring their parents not to use plastic bags, because the kid was present in the lecture. The kid actually raised a hand and mentioned to me during the question and answer that my mom always takes up extra carry bags for the dustbin and all from the vegetable. How can I stop that? And this is really good example that what education can do. Even if parents are not aware, if you make their kids aware, the sustainable change is going to come inside the household.
Psychology always says that the kids could be a better teacher for parents when they don't listen. Okay, taking it further, Gopal, about the waste management. There are ways going on at a community level, at an organization level. What are the platforms and how this can connect to the case study like this from the GBCI perspective? What are the platforms available to monitor and measure the waste and control the move towards zero waste?
Yeah, so let me answer the question in two parts. So one is, let me talk about the measurement you talked about. I think, and again, going back to the fact you talked about the fourth, industrial revolution. So I think the world is definitely moving towards data. Forget sustainability for the time being. Now, in the last 10 years, I think all of us are aware that every organization today, data is transparent today. Whether it is a profit and loss, whether it's a balance sheet, whether it is a manufacturing safety ratio, today everything is live. And that's one of the reasons why we launched a technology platform on sustainability 2 years back. So it's called the ARC platform, as you said, because data has a new leadership. So what it has done is that it has completely transformed the landscape. Now, right from your energy, water, waste, including your indoor environmental quality, can be a carbon dioxide, VOC. Today, everything, you can get data on everything. So what we did is to develop a platform, and by the way, it's agnostic to rating. So we're not talking about LEED anymore. So we have provided a platform. Incidentally, it's free to use. Any building, it can be a certified building, it can be a non-certified building, it can be at a city level, a community level, all can actually push data into it, right? So it includes your data on waste as well. So what does it do? Going back to your initial slides, it first of all helps you to benchmark today, right? So at a building level, again, benchmarking can be done different segment wise, because as you're aware, a data center behaves very differently compared to a manufacturing industry, or let's say a hospital or a hotel. So, something is energy intensive, something is water intensive. So, there are these apples and oranges. So what we did was to create a technology platform, allowed benchmarking based on segments. And this actually also helps to have your future strategies. Now, Dominic talked about, there is no escaping that we have to be in together. So today at a world level, countries have actually signed on the fact that, I'm going to reduce carbon emissions and all that. But now how do you do that? Yes, in the last 30 years, we have done through buildings. But I think if you need to do it exponentially, you also need to look at cities and communities. I'll come to that later. But I think the important thing is to take data, to understand where you are, right? So you are able to calibrate that, set objectives for the future. It can be a larger holistic carbon objective. Break it down into your KPIs on energy, water, waste, carbon footprint, human experience, etc. So I think this, as I said, is sort of picking up speed. So just to give you some stats, in the last 30 years, if let's say close to 30 billion square feet has come under LEED, in the last 2 years, 5 billion square feet has come into the technology platform. So you can understand the scale. You can also understand the rapidity of adoptions. And again, I think it syncs back with the digital revolution happening.
Correct.
I think buildings are getting wired, so data is everywhere. So pick up the data, put it into the platform, get to know where you are, that's awareness, get to set your objectives, execute it, and then move to either performing buildings or even net zero buildings.
True, Gopal, as you rightly mentioned earlier, that it was the design compliance, then project compliances. Now, because of digitization, it becomes so easy. The tools have become so easy, and the young generations are that so tech savvy about digitization. It has become everything at a fingertips of compliances. Now, as you rightly mentioned, CO2, carbon emissions, climate are the challenges which the whole world is talking about. But predominantly, climate and environmental air quality is big challenge in Asian countries. To be very specific, in South Asian countries. If you talk about environmental performance index, the indexes are very, very poor. What sort of actions, Rishikesh, the government is planning to do, and how the construction sector is supporting that to reduce the environmental pollution, particularly urban areas?
So if you see the air pollution in urban areas, basically we are talking about parameters like CO2, SO2, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and then what we call as PM10 and PM2.5, particulate matter, which is smaller than 10 micron and 2.5 micron. So there are many source apportionment studies carried out in India. If I would say Mumbai and Delhi, both cities have many studies. And the studies have generally indicated that out of all the PM10 and PM2.5, around 30%, if I combine Mumbai and Delhi data, around 30% would come from construction and road dust. The PM10 and PM2.5 would come from that. Then if you consider, say, sulfur dioxide, then now vehicular pollution is contributing less and less to sulfur dioxide, because now the diesel is almost desulfurized. That kind of diesel you get. But the industrial consumption of sulfur diesel is very high. So if you see now industries are contributing as the highest contributor of sulfur dioxide within the cities also, because every city has some pockets for industries. In fact, if you know, India is the largest SO2 polluter in the world right now. So if you look at cities itself, I would say construction activity, any kind of construction, building construction or infrastructure, or the dust generated would contribute around 30%, industry 10 to 15%, vehicle emission another 30%, roughly. And if you see northern parts of India, a lot of dust and pollution also comes from burning of crops. That's not that common in western part. So if you consider all that, these are the roughly contributors of air pollution. Now, air pollution needs to be addressed at many levels. As you know, there is already National Clean Air Program going on in India, and the program has identified many sectors. Like first sector would be converting all public transport into electrical vehicles. Okay. That itself will require a huge amount of investment, but that is a sure shot way of getting it done. Second thing is covering all, it's happening through EESL. A lot of efforts are being done, and covering all the exposed areas in the city, with either turf, paving, or grass. That would reduce the road dust which is generated to at least 10 to 15%. That itself will give a lot of benefit. If I look at, but these are like government programs which are done at government level. If you look at individual or industries which have to contribute, then when they go to the process of environmental clearance, which is compulsory for them, then many restrictions are posed, like reducing dust pollution is asked for them. Now many of the measures suggested by LEED and USGBC are now part of the regulations, like tire wash, side barricading. These are essential parts now. Industries are definitely asked to reduce their pollution levels. You can provide various pollution control equipments to there. So there are various ways of looking at it. Government level, the scope is quite broader, and they can look at infrastructure kind of thing. Individual industries are given a specific standards and they have to follow it. If they follow it, then it is anticipated that the overall impact will be less.
Talking about industry, particularly I'll ask Rishikesh about the power generation, because in India, I think 50 to 60% of the power generation is because of the coal, which is a huge contributor for CO2. So what sort of actions government is planning to control that emission of carbon from the power sector, the industry?
Okay. So as I just mentioned, India is the biggest polluter of sulfur. That is because, as you said, there is huge electrical generation through coal. Now, India has few hotspots for coal. Okay, Singrauli, which is in Madhya Pradesh, Korba, which is in Chhattisgarh. I don't know how many of you know. Korba is a very small town which has around 8 thermal power plants, and because the situation is so that there is coal available, there is water available. Singrauli has the same situation. If you see, another cluster would be Kutch, Gujarat, because a lot of coal comes from Indonesia through ships. And there are big ultra mega power plants like Kutch. Just one district, Mundra district, is producing 8,000 megawatt through coal right now, consuming around 80,000 tons of coal every day. So that's kind of emission and pollution we are looking at. Now, government has made it compulsory for all the coal power plants to have desulfurization units, but they don't insist on putting it in the machine in the plant right now. They want you to keep the space for it, but they don't make it compulsory. Second thing, what we can see is India is now also doing a lot of work on solar and wind, and trying to substitute it with coal power. We hope in India, maximum coal power plants would be closing, say, up to 2035. Yeah. But the point is, India as a country, the major power source, the major fuel which we have within the country is coal. It is said that the coal reserves can still be exploited for next 300 years. So I don't see coal going out completely, because alternative would be purchasing fuel from outside.
As you rightly mentioned, Rishikesh, India is really pushing big way for the renewable energy. Rather, if you look at International Solar Alliance, the headquarters has been in Gurgaon in India. And recently, about a couple of years back, there was a declaration from our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi ji. He declared a very massive project, or a great idea, saying that one world, one sun, one grid. So not associated to only one area as such, we are talking about interfacing the whole world on a grid of renewable energy, which is a very ambitious project. And I am not mistaken, during in this pandemic also, the tenders have been floated for that. So it's a great thing. It's a great thing. Taking that renewable chapter further, Dominic, what exactly Bharat is planning to implement in terms of renewable energy and energy efficiency sectors?
As I say, leadership. Bahrain has already passed two cabinet level, two major plans. One is a national energy efficiency plan. It has numerous objectives, which are all being implemented under a committee, an implementation committee. It has a second national plan, which is a national renewables plan. Set targets. Governments like to set targets that are achievable. We are really looking beyond those targets. We are full steam ahead. I mean, the wheels are turning. But getting back to what you were talking about in India with the coal fire, I mean, governments have to deliver power, they have to deliver water, they have to deliver infrastructure. We're talking about infrastructure. And I would turn to Gopal as well on pulling what you said, Gopal, into this in terms of data. The big battlefield that's going to arise is governments are exhausted with the COVID pandemic. And we're going to move to more private sector involvement in the provision of infrastructure. There's no question about that. And we're going with Gopal, for example, your excellent work on data. We're going to go to those meeting places. I think you called it the end of the pipeline it's actually, I would say the beginning of the pipeline of the project is actually getting in there and securing these major investments into our infrastructure to satisfy the public and to provide the services required. Now, what is the data we have in our pockets? We have all of you, as Gopal says, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So we are going now with all of this data. But there is one thing, and you've heard me say this before, I've coined this phrase, it's the catchphrase for all our negotiations. You cannot sit down and do this unless you know the difference between the return of value and the value of return. The value of return is where we meet the financial markets. The return of value is where we have our pocket full of data from Gopal telling us exactly what we want in terms of value. Now, it's meeting that halfway or 3/4 or whatever way is going to determine how fast we're going to get this job done, quite frankly. As far as government and big projects and power stations and water stations and all the big life support system infrastructure that we need to build, every country in the future, it's going to be that sharpness, that intelligence, that data that lets us negotiate with this clear idea. What is the difference between the return of value for a government or for a people or a community, and what is the value of return, which is what the finance sector is looking for at the end of the day? That's their life and that's their focus. Now, that's
Dominic,
where we are going.
Okay, sorry, Dominic, we are into Middle East, we are into the GCC countries where the infrastructure is perceived to be one of the good infrastructure. We do not have problem of infrastructure in terms of the road, in terms of the water, in terms of the availability. Yes, cost of the infrastructure is pretty high, which is not being passed. It has been highly subsidized. But then, as we are moving further, we don't see in Gulf as such infrastructure is a problem. What exactly you would like to mean that we have to develop an infrastructure for implementation?
Actually, we're actually hitting the second cycle now. We're actually looking at refurbishing infrastructure. We have a life cycle in every infrastructure, and quite frankly, as well as improving infrastructure, we are replacing infrastructure. And at every level, as we're all saying the same thing, at every step, whether it's refurbishing infrastructure or replacing infrastructure or innovation in infrastructure, we all must have these clear objectives of what we're trying to achieve. And we have to be crystal clear when we engage the finance, the private finance. That's the important thing. Yes, you know, we're locked into power purchase agreements. We have private sector power stations. It's the quality of those agreements. It's the quality of the expenditure and then getting this embedded into future agreements that we can better manage these major investments to keep sustainability, not just in terms of these goals, but in actual fact, keeping our communities satisfied with infrastructure.
So when we are talking about improvement and replacement or the enhancement of the infrastructure, are we taking the infrastructure for particularly power, etc.? Are we considering that goals for renewable energy implementation or energy efficiency, has it been sorted out? Has it been some policies like as the UAE, we are talking about 30% of the energy we are supposed to have on a solar by 2030. We are also talking about 30% energy reduction has to happen, and 50% we are talking about on renewable by 2050. So such tangible goals have been established.
We don't have those goals as such. We don't have those targets as high as that. We have lower targets. But the most important thing is to get the wheels turning, and the wheels are turning, and they're actually accelerating, and that's the good news. We are really focused on this. We have good leadership. We have good intervention, and it's moving faster than and it's surprising me. My particular my particular, we have a green building code where we're going to push the limits. We're going to push well past the targets on the green building code. We're bringing in consultants on artificial intelligence to look at, how we can improve things in how we do things. Our district cooling, for example, all of these chances to bring in technology, to bring in innovation, to bring in finer tuning, to get better, to get more productive. All of that is in the package. There's a whole range of how we procure for the government. We setting standards, it's regulation. I come back to this R, it's the regulation always. We're looking at the regulation. We're looking at how government can actually set rules for doing business, whether it's the private sector or the public sector. And I think this is a great role for government in the future, is to focus on these regulations to make things happen. For example, net metering, it's been done in Dubai, it's been done in Abu Dhabi. We've just done it. We did it quickly. We did it big bang. We got it done very quickly too. And it changed the whole business. Everyone's looking for solar suddenly. And in fact, we have difficulty now with the demand for solar because people want to export electricity to the grid as a business or as a home or as a school. We're doing 500 billion. We're taking the rooftops and giving them to the private sector to invest in solar. So the schools are going to be powered with solar, but it's going to be a private enterprise. So
yeah, solar unless and until
Alejandro's point, you create the opportunity, they will come, they will do. It's happening. And the problem is actually managing the demand. And it's all through a regulation. Suddenly you trigger a regulation and bang, you find people queuing up. And you say, whoa, I didn't expect that much.
True. For sure, unless for solar, unless until it is on grid, it doesn't make any sense because cost of storing the energy, batteries and maintenance is on a very high side. So once we make it on grid, then it will certainly flourish. Saying that,
if I could just say, when we looked at district cooling, we went to Singapore. My goodness, Singapore, very highly regulated Singapore. Amazing the way the energy demand factor was managed. It was an hourly tariff. So the district cooling company, once it went above a certain level during the day, they went into energy storage. They went to what they'd used, what they cooled during the night to cool the Marina district in Singapore. Ultimate technology, fine tuning, and super efficient energy storage. Again, all you need is a regulation on differential tariffs. And suddenly we'll be storing energy. It's all down to that R.
See, regulation is important, no doubt about that. Taking an example of Singapore in a water treatment has gone to a level they have treated the water to the level of new water. So whatever wastewater is there, that is getting converted into the water bottles. They declared as a new water. To that level, they are talking about the recycling. Talking about that, Henrique, I know for Ras Al Khaimah, the power is being provided by FEWA, which is at federal level. But then when we talk about industry, as we are talking about industry aspects, what sort of initiatives Ras Al Khaimah municipality is taking to reduce the consumption or energy efficiencies in the industrial sector? We discussed about Burjil as the platform for the buildings. How the industrial sector is being catered in Ras Al Khaimah, because there are a lot of industries in Ras Al Khaimah.
Sure. So we have catered it to different angles. No? So the first, as you said, is these green building regulations that, of course, mandate a certain standard for instance, new facilities being built or major renovations on existing facilities. We also work very, very closely with the industrial zones to make sure that at the overall development level, certain requirements are there in terms of infrastructure, etc., to make it simpler. We have launched what we call an auditing scheme for the industries, with the overall goal of identifying possible opportunities for improvement and to describe a way of how these improvements can be achieved, leaving, of course, the ultimate answer to the industry itself. No, we are not trying to provide solutions, but to identify opportunities, no, that can be then pursued with the help of the market, no. We are also running different initiatives that focusing on different, you can call it horizontal systems for industry. I mean, we're talking now about power generation. I just came earlier, in the day from, a meeting with a power generation company that wants to introduce new solutions in the Ras Al Khaimah industrial sector, no? So these are the kind of initiatives that we are happy to support also and to engage with different stakeholders to expose, the local industries to new solutions that can fit on their needs and can provide them a sustainable way, or a more sustainable way, let's call it like that, of having the resources they need. This all actually ties in with a lot of the things that we have been talking so far. I always face this argument of technology. Are technological solutions available to support all of these initiatives, or is there kind of a technology barrier? No? And I think it's pretty understandable and pretty obvious by now that technology is not the barrier. No? There are multiple technologies available that can help us in different angles on different realities, and this is evolving every day. Data is there also, as has been discussed, to support us on choosing the best one. I think also financing has always been an issue, particularly when you talk about more kind of infrastructure related activities. And on this case, I think Dominic has a very good point there, saying that we will require more the involvement of the same private sector. And again, I go back to this very small example where this company is actually interested in financing it in full, and then of course selling energy at a certain agreed price, which is also a little bit of our vision. No, I mean, governments everywhere, including our own, have been faced with severe restrictions by the global pandemic. So we need to find different answers, but the problems remain there. No, we cannot just avoid them or ignore them or let them wait until we can come back to them later. No, that is not a possible solution. So we need to find just different angles, different answers, even at different avenues that we can use to solve those issues that are still there and will be there unless we do something about them. No. So our main focus is on this, is on finding what are the different solutions that are there. Technologies, many. Business models, engagement models, few that are also there available. So all of this is just for us as I see us as kind of a chef where there are many ingredients available. You cook what you think is the best suitable, dish for the kind of local population you serve, using these multiple different ingredients that are there and available. So it's of course a little bit more complicated doing it than saying it, but still in the end, it's this role that we kind of represent here. There are many barriers. My personal opinion is that most of the barriers are actually up here in our minds. They are not physical barriers, technological barriers, financial barriers. They are just barriers that we impose ourselves on ways that we have been doing things. And maybe we need to break this mold a little bit and do things a little bit different, so that we can achieve our goals in a more efficient and faster way.
So basically, you are saying energy audits are being proposed, or I don't know, imposed. Is it imposed? It's proposed for the industrial sector for energy audits as such.
Yes, we always see it. Look, it's kind of this old story of the carrot and stick. For us, I mean, governments in the end have a very basic set of options available. If you talk about it, conceptually, we can incentivize people to do something, or we can punish people for not doing something. No, our way of choice is always first to start by incentivizing people to do the right thing. No, and that's where this audit program stands. So we are offering these at a very favorable conditions. This is the incentive that we are giving, so that interested industries, and of course we push it as much as we can so that everybody can at least be aware of it and understand the benefits that are there. And in exchange, what we want is, as has been said several times, data. No, we want to know what are the measures being taken and what is the outcomes of those measures. And we do it kind of targeting multiple segments. No, eventually over time, these incentives will become kind of regulations. No, where you have to do things a certain way. Look, we are talking about industries. We have a lot of cement industries. No, one thing that cement industries changed radically over the last maybe 10, 15 years was emissions. No, so they generate a lot of nocive, emissions from particles, from chemicals, from a lot of different things. And in the old days, you can say it like that, there was no barriers on the exhaust. So they were just exhausting it to the atmosphere, no? And then certain set of incentives were there for them to take care of these pollutants until it actually became a law, a regulation. You need to do it up to a certain standard. And now we are incentivizing it to go higher than that standard, until a moment in time where a new law will come and set a new standard on which we will incentivize on going even higher than that standard. No, so this is kind of a rolling wave that accompanies us. No, sometimes the challenge we have is what is the time frame between each turn of this rolling wave. No, if it is too long, then we lose an opportunity. But if it is too short, we may also make problems to the market and harm it in the end. No, so we also need to be careful on that. Again, it's not an easy answer, but it's part of what we have to do every day. No.
Yes, very well. Alejandro, looking from a perspective of the climate change and CO2 emissions, I believe 31%, as per the global data of United Nations, 31% CO2 emission is because of the industry, 28% is because of the domestic and commercial sectors, and 11% contributes by the construction sector. So, looking from the United Nations, what are the unique projects it has taken to reduce this CO2 emissions at a industry or at a domestic level, which you would like to share, which can be encouraging to other countries to follow?
Thank you. It has been interesting to follow all points. Thank you, Dominique, for raising this critical observation that at the end of the day, it's all about each individual, each person. And I fully agree that society is optimistic. At the very grassroots level, we all dream of a better future. And I think the new generation in most parts of the world today believe in an optimistic future. I feel that. I have 3 children myself, and I feel they are aware of the challenges more than I was at my age, but they also feel they want to be part of the solution. I would like to add one thing, not from I will reach your comment, Sagar, on the role industry needs to play in the future. I can refer to the cement industry in particular. I'm looking at in front of me right now, it was announced yesterday, 21 of September, LafargeHolcim signs a net zero pledge with the SDG Commission. So this is the kind of work we do with large corporations like LafargeHolcim, so that in all 190 of their plants, more and more these SDGs and these principles are not discussed, but are implemented. We're not a regulator, we're not a enforcer. We go about this work through capacity building and convincing the economic value of investing in smarter technologies and smarter processes. Maybe I can introduce something here. I've been listening to the conversation. The Gulf is a very fascinating region because you are possibly leapfrogging many things, many ideas that we here in Europe have already matured, yes. My comment is, I live in Vienna, and in Vienna, the individual, even myself, my neighbor, we all can participate very actively in every decision. Here in Vienna, most Austrian cities have a model where it's a tripartite agreement. It's the government or the city authority, there is the private sector, and there is the civil society. And the civil society component is very strong, well organized, and as I say, very democratic. So if I want to, as an individual, if I do want to engage the issue of household energy or energy efficiency in the wintertime, I can engage heavily if I have experience from the technology point, if I have experience from the finance, or if I simply have a point of view. But my voice is definitely heard. So it's a very cumbersome process. I call it bottom up, but I've been here 40 years, and I know change in Vienna is very slow, but when it happens, it really happens and it sticks. So I think one thing we should introduce into this conversation about securing sustainability of the future is this mechanism with civil society. Dominique, you mentioned the individual. And I'm speaking about individual at every age group. Even my son, who's 21, sits on a committee regarding, because he's in an industry, in the photography industry, he sits in a committee that is discussing precisely how photographers can help more the aesthetics of Vienna for certain issues that are going around the refugee crisis. We have in Vienna big parts of Vienna that are changing. Their faces are changing because the population is changing. So there's a big dialogue with artists, how to go about this aspect of living in Vienna for a long time. We've been living with very segregated communities, but now it's so mixed, it's potentially a conflict. But again, it's civil society that's being asked. It's not industry, it's not governments, it's not the UN, it's civil society that's being asked to come up with ideas. And the city of Vienna has a way to reward civil society. There are many prizes, there are many funds or financing you can obtain if you participate and provide ideas or provide knowledge. If you're a company and you want to get involved in providing solutions for your city in Vienna, you have all the doors open and it works very well. So maybe I'm speaking of many things, but if I listen to this conversation, one thing that emerges is the experience of Vienna primarily. And Vienna, this mechanism of speaking to civil society, which I don't see in much Latin America, I don't see much in Africa. These are the two places I work heavily in. I find that a very important ingredient to introduce in your conversation. The issue of civil society and how they participated and how they are rewarded for their participation. I find that's the excitement. When you ask them to participate, you will get quite a bit of innovation on that. Regarding to how the UN goes about promoting the SDGs, that's the strongest word I can use, promoting. We don't enforce and so forth, is through standards. I listened to your presentation at all the standards your firm is looking at, all the standards you are trying to bring to your clients. That's the name of the game. Standards, you mentioned, Dominique, agreements, but at the end of the day, it's a very technical world, standards. So we're a big fan in the industrial world. We're a big fan of standards. So that's perhaps the tool we use most to speak with countries for enforcing. We don't call it enforcing, but we do promote heavy use of standards.
Amrita, you wanted to say something. You're raising your hand.
Yes. What Alejandro was saying, it's very interesting, his perspective, how the things are in Vienna in terms of civil society. I would like to add one point here. When it comes to Middle East or Gulf, the civil societies are kind of not static because most of the population is
Dynamic, it's moving.
Yeah, it's moving. And that is actually, from my experience, I have seen that is kind of a hurdle for government and the industries to kind of get the message passed to the bottom from top to down. Because what happens, even if whatever the civil society is there right now, you educate them, you make them aware, and most of the expatriate, they move on and they move to some other place or go back to their home, and you get the new influx of people. You have to restart that education. Even for Sustainability Tribe, I've seen that the new readers who come and they say, we are new to UAE, we are new in the Middle East, we don't know this. So I think this is really interesting aspect where maybe Middle Eastern governments and the industries locally should look at, and maybe they will have to find some innovative or different solution because we cannot follow the same model. But it's a very interesting aspect he touched, and like food for brain for all of us here.
Okay. Geographically, demographically, the governments have different formalities, like or different forms. And being citizens, you have to just comply with the scenario. So there are a few aspects which are beyond our control, and we are supposed to deal with that. But yes, what can we understand the whole scenario is communication is a key. The moment we start communications with right people, right thing, it may get into actions. So to have any actions sorted out, the communication is a key, is what I would like to take it further. Now, Mr. Gopal, when we are talking about this and certification of aspects, communication as a part, and rating system, Vienna and Europe has been one of the fine areas in terms of the energy and atmosphere and the environmental air quality. You, GBCI came out with a concept of lead cities. So what was the whole concept which went behind in shifting your goal from the building to the city level? And what are the parameters you consider to make a certified city? Like Dubai is one of the certified city, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Again, so you know, as I taking back from where I left. So, you know, we have been doing buildings for the last 30 years, and definitely we have progressed. But we then realized that, you know, in case we need to do a quantum jump, you need to look from a community, city, or even a country perspective. So what we did is very simple, right? So the same guidelines for LEED for a building, we actually sort of extended to a city. Now, but again, there are some nuances there, right? So while the energy is the same, but you're talking about per capita, right? You're talking about the greenhouse emission intensity, which is your total greenhouse divided by GDP. You have the same water, again, per capita water consumption, accessibility to water, the water balance statement, etc. But I think there are a couple of interesting ones the cities should incorporate. For example, let's assume that, you know, a new city is coming up. So what we said is, one of the prerequisites for getting a LEED for that city is at a design stage, we need to see an integrated team working on it. It's just not about, you know, architects and master planners. For example, interestingly, we said even before COVID, we said that there should be a public health authority in the team as well. So design your, you know, the health and safety for that city while you're planning for it, right? Again, we just tweak some, instead of a human experience at a building level, we call it as a quality of life at a city level, right? So we've got a lot of social matrices. For example, you know, we talked about accessibility to education, accessibility to affordable housing, healthcare. What is the Gini coefficient of income? What is the median income? What are the crimes? So we brought a lot of social matrices to reflect the quality of life. The other interesting aspect which I remember is something called a compact and a complete center, CCC, which is we are looking at a city and checking what percentage of the population is living in a CCC. The CCC, as you're aware, is where you have a mixed use development. You have residential, you have a commercial, you have retail, you have everything within that. It's a micro city so that they don't need to move around. So we defined the CCC and said, what percentage of the population is in the CCC? And what about the accessibility of transport to the CCC? How far is that from a CCC, right? And obviously all the other elements, I think somebody spoke about electric vehicles. So what it has done is that, so it can be applied to both a new city as well as existing city. For example, Dubai you spoke about, we used an existing platform. Again, we use the same technology platform. So that's for Dominic to also note that we took data from the city. We sat with the different authorities of Dubai and took out all the data, helped them to take out all the data, put it into the same platform and use that to certify the city. So you can do it at a design stage. You can do it in a city which is already complete. That today we have close to 165 cities participating in the program, right? So you talked about Dubai. I cannot name the cities because it's confidential, but as we speak, Dubai has actually inspired 6 other cities in Gulf. Surat became the first city to be certified in India, and that is inspiring people. And we are not talking about public cities only. What we said is, I think, we're speaking about manufacturing. So even the industrial clusters coming tomorrow, right? So because of today, the COVID geopolitical situation, I think today a lot of countries, including India, they are trying to now look at industrial parks and saying, okay, guys, you can invest into this. So we are telling the government, when you're conceptualizing an industrial park or a pharma city or whatever it is, why don't you actually deploy this at a design stage? So that's getting a lot of pickup. And that also answers one of the top points we are covering, right? So if I'm a citizen, I'm going to be asking what is in it for me. So I think the cities and the communities platform has got all the answers. And as rightly said, Sagar, it is important to communicate the benefits, right? So we feel it's a very powerful platform which is going to possibly look at a geometric progression of adoption, which has been sort of, we've been clipping 30 to 40% at a building level, but the cities and communities possibly is going to change the game permanently.
While you mentioned that one of the aspect is a waste management at a city level also. So Dominic, what are the, normally what happens in Gulf is a lot of waste goes to landfill. Now that itself is a big challenge. So in order to address this, what are the aspects Bharan is thinking of in handling the water management, which is like sewage management and waste management?
Well, we learned an enormous, we're all learning. We learn, I've made mistakes. We all make mistakes. We learned a lot. I'm just back from a major arbitration case at Paris Arbitration Court on a waste to energy PPP. We learned many things. Do not do something as major as a waste to energy plant unless you have got energy management fully worked out. You cannot do this in pieces. It has to be a holistic approach. The waste to energy is the highest level of and we tried it, and we're going to do it again, but we're going to have a different approach this time. It's going to concentrate on a holistic recycling of building material, for example, the management of our waste and domestic waste. Interesting about citizen involvement. I'll tell you a story. We just built a major waste to energy plant in Dublin, and the consultants were sued by the public in the Supreme Court because they manipulated the business case. So there was too much capacity and big cost on the capacity. So consultants beware. The public are watching, and they're not stupid. They're very smart, and they have now ways of catching you in the long grass. So you know, it's all coming together. The one thing I want to say about this. I think I've covered the waste. We are implementing a waste management system, comprehensive, all aspects of waste, to move away from landfill, and the end of the pipeline will be a waste to energy plant. We're looking at new technologies like pyrolysis and different less crude type of technology than it's all part of the growing and learning thing. But I've lost my track now. I wanted to say something else.
We got the notification like Bagni is in the process of establishing the waste to energy plant, and then it's in process. While saying so, Alejandro, you're quite enthusiastic about when he says people are going to take task. What was that?
I just say about wind. What we did was we published a wind atlas. So anybody who doesn't have to, you know, we don't have to go back to zero on every subject. Here's the country, here's the wind atlas. Do something about it. You don't have to investigate over and over again. This is the kind of things that we're doing in trying to promote alternatives.
Okay.
I'll remember what I wanted to say. I'll come back to you.
No problem. No problem. Alejandro, the whole thing, when you talk about sustainability, it is said that it has to get realized at an African region. We can have fantastic projects with availability of funds in Gulf, in GCC. We can have in Europe, we can have in USA. The key aspect where we can see real sustainability to the down to earth is in Africa. What are these projects? Have you come across any project which has really touched the people of the Africa and it has made their life in a better way? A technology which touches the millions and make their life better is considered to be successful technology. Today you are talking about smartphone, it has touched millions and billions of people. So what was that really made change in your tenure or in your experience, or if you are doing something which is really affecting that? We cannot compare ourselves with Vienna, etc., where there are different demographics, but then what are these at African level with your position and with your experience?
Thank you. Well, it's an unfair question. So many things have been done well and have improved lives, of course, have a long way to go. If I go back to what kind of projects impact the most, and we speak about Africa, I particularly would go to household energy. The issue of dirty cooking or cooking with charcoal and wood and or any other type of organic burning. This is for example, again, just as an example, these are programs that go into most cities of Africa have a problem of cooking. This goes to not only an indoor air pollution issue, it goes heavily into the livelihoods of families because energy costs go up to 30, 40, 60% of a family costs just to cook and have a breakfast, to have a lunch, to have a dinner, if you have food. So what I'm saying is, these are the types of programs that I feel, after working so many years, I feel the UN has missed. How can it be that we are speaking about 3/4 of the world population still cooking with wood? And these are fantastic numbers, and this doesn't happen in only African countries. It happens in China, it will happen in India, it will happen in many countries. And so back to to your question, I particularly, if you ask me today, Alejandro Vera, what is a program that I feel the UN focus more on or development partner should work more on? I could touch many issues, health, education, but I would go to the household energy issue foremost. And I feel that's a low-hanging fruit, and it's an unfortunate reality. And I think, again, about perceptions, and I know many of these African cities, if development partners could really solve the issue of this problem of so many households cooking every morning with smoke, day in, day out, and the whole tragedy that goes around with looking for wood and so forth, I find these are the types of programs the UN should really look at. But it's an unfair question because there's a lot of good projects out there to speak of, but this is where private sector, I think, has its next opportunity.
So what was this technology altogether? When you're saying that, what technology was implemented at household cooking?
Okay, in this case, we're speaking about an ethanol-based economy, an ethanol-based cooking household source. We find this a great proposition because it's so circular. It goes back to agriculture, and it doesn't go to food. It goes to waste again. And it goes to what Dominic was speaking about, integrated waste to management programs. They are complex, but at the end of the day, it's the way forward. We must think like this. And waste is a huge, huge opportunity. Today, we call it urban mining, but if I walk down the city you see here on my screen, if I walk to all those buildings, today they're all being retrofitted, but with a special purpose to do the mining, to take the best out of these buildings and put in the new technology and take the old out, but with the old to do something very economic with. So in the case of this project, we're speaking about a circular technology based on very simple ethanol production. Today, the ability to deliver a stove and with very high grade ethanol for cooking, it's very feasible. It's also very big business if you can deliver fuel every day to every household. Charcoal itself is a huge business. It's an unspoken huge business. And that's one of the biggest problems we are facing. If you want to speak about bringing new fuel to the household, you have established groups that are not going to let go of this business. In this case, the charcoal and the wood value chain, or the LPG value chain, or the electricity in some cases. But my proposal to your question would be technologies that are solving household problems, whether it be for energy, whether it be for food, for security. These things are, for me, the aspects where more innovation must go.
I fully agree. The local factors matter a lot. As we all know, Africa is blessed with the natural resources. They have ample oil, but electricity is still a big challenge. We have been working in projects in Africa and in Kenya, and the electricity is a backup support. So only reasons who are working in the country know why it has not been flourishing, but that's not an area for discussion. Coming back, as you were mentioning that household thing, where again, I will go back to Amruta, reduction of the waste at a household level. What a person like me, an individual, how can we reduce our waste at home? When you're doing the sustainability tribe aspects, what you would like to suggest, particularly when most of the kitchen waste we generate is to the kitchen. So what are the ideas or the concepts you can give?
So before giving your answer, I would just like to add one aspect, which I think Alejandro, Dominic have already discussed. When we were talking about, Dominic was talking about infrastructure, and I want to highlight that we don't have infrastructure for reducing waste in UAE or Gulf countries yet, where we don't have a public composting system. We don't have, we do have recycling system, definitely. But recycling is again not enough because a lot of greenhouse gases are generated directly through food waste and organic waste. So that is one point we need to definitely look into, and we need more businesses to join in. If government could join in and bring in some public composting system, that would be great. But one of the success story of my Zero Waste UAE initiative is previously, before launching the initiative, the reusable products or more sustainable products were not available in UAE or Gulf. But after the Zero Waste UAE initiative started getting popular, so kind of consumer-driven campaign, and then the businesses started seeing the demand for more sustainable product. I'm really hoping that we can also create the demand for circular economy, like cradle to cradle products, hopefully. But the lot of businesses started offering zero waste solutions in UAE after this initiative. Even a big giant like Majid Al Futtaim, they started the refilling station in all the Carrefour grocery stores. So now coming back to the question you were asking me, what can we do at home? So to reduce the waste at individual level or at household level, we need to look at 5 R's. You were talking about 6 R's, more of industry, but these are 5 R's for us individuals. So refuse, one of the first is refuse. So don't get carried away and overconsume things, so refuse. Then reuse, recycle, and reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. Rot is composting. So what I do, I would just talk as an individual. What I do at my household is I compost all my organic waste, like kitchen waste, because actually our food waste is creating direct negative impact on climate change. It is directly creating greenhouse gases. So that is one of the best thing each of us can do. So please start as soon as possible if you could. So what you need to do for composting is you don't really need to go and buy the composting system. It is very easy. You just need to have how the composting works. You need to have nitrogen. So nitrogen will be your all wet organic waste. Also like all your food scraps, vegetables, fruit peels, coffee grounds, things like those, even the tea bags.
Can we just take out cooked food?
Cooked food, you can. For example, if you're eating fish, you can add the fish bones. I won't prefer to add oil in that because oil will not help. So you could better to avoid. So I would suggest make sure whatever cooked food is there, cook enough so that you are not wasting it, or store in a way so that you can consume it by yourself. So please do not waste the cooked food. But all the food scraps and the organic scraps, even from your garden, if you have organic scraps. So you need nitrogen, you need carbon. So carbon could be your dry leaves or cocoa peat. Generally, many people who compost, they buy the cocoa peat. So the coconut waste, cocoa peat is made out of coconuts, shells, and the fibers. And all of that, you need to you can get one simple container, a plastic container, drill the holes so that your compost can breathe in. So get the plastic containers, add layer by layer. So the carbon layer, then the nitrogen layer. So first and last layer has to be carbon. You need more carbon than the nitrogen to make sure it doesn't smell and things like those. And you just need activators. So you could use rice water and things like that. And all of your cooking waste, you can, food waste or organic waste, you can convert into composting. So make soil instead of generating greenhouse gases. That is what I would say.
Rather, does it smell?
No.
Because with this, normally smell is the issue. So
yes. That's why I mentioned one of the things you need to remember is you need to have more carbon than nitrogen. Okay. So that is how you have to maintain. And you also need to have some pest control system. So I use neem powder, so neem seeds powder or neem oil spray. And it is really good. I have been composting for many years, and I also gift composting. So if you see me with a glass jar, it will be compost gift for you because I generate a lot of compost.
Alejandro, how do you feel? The world is talking about the problem of solving the waste, etc. And if you can handle it at a family level, at a house level, it will have so much resources saved as a whole community?
For me, this was a strong takeaway. I took note of the recipe. Yeah.
I hope you are not infringing the copyrights of Amruta.
No. This is, I think, traditional knowledge. Everyone knows.
I personally find these, they're not anecdotes, they're technologies. Congratulations. Please keep it up. It's contagious.
Okay. Hrishikesh, during last communication, you're talking strong about consumption. If we do not improve our consumption patterns, we are going to have a challenging times to go ahead. What exactly what do you anticipate and what do you feel the impacts of that consumption patterns and how it can be controlled?
I think it's already been touched upon all the speakers in many ways. As I mentioned that I would say India is a third world country. If you compare our income levels, are, I think, around, if you consider in dollars, it's per capita per day, we are around $5 per capita per day. And if you look at, I think, Bahrain, it is 6 times more than India, if you consider the income levels. US, the income levels are around 16-20. And right now, if I take carbon emission as my indicator of my consumption, we are at a very low level. Right now, we are at 1.8 tons per capita per day. If you look at Bahrain, I think it's around 22. US is around 16 or 17 tons per day. So I see that as consumption, we are much lower in the world. Okay. But I won't say that's a product of awareness. That's a product of non-availability of resources and the financial position where we are. So as I mentioned earlier also, once the income levels will go up, because the income levels are going up slowly, our waste generation would go up tremendously because of the huge population we have. Up till now, we were considering as 200 grams per capita per day as an emission standard for waste generated. Now, slowly we have reached in urban areas to 500 grams to 600 grams. And God forbid if we reach US level of 1.2 to 1.4 kg, I think, per capita per day, if those levels we reach. Right now, the city of Mumbai generates 6,000 tons of waste every day. And we don't have a place to put it. And unless everybody adopts formula of Amruta, if they do, then our waste generation, which is living at the dumping ground, would be reduced by at least 50%, I would say. But right now, that's not happening. So I see that as the third world, I would say India and China and Brazil, all the BRICS countries. China, I now should not say third world. But these countries, once they start consuming at a higher rate, which everybody wants to, because that is what is considered as a lifestyle achievement. Everybody wants to do that. So if you look at that, then the situation would be really grim. So I see that unless and until the consumption patterns are controlled, as clearly said by everybody, through education and awareness, it won't really make a difference. Because as the money will grow, people will consume more unless and until they believe that they have sufficient. The consumption pattern will go on, and that will create a huge problem for us.
So basically, again, we are saying it has to become a part of value system. It has to become a part of behavioral system. The way we consume and the way we discard has to get percolated from that level. While saying so, you
rise, I think the gap between our value system will be more highlighted, I would say, rather than right now the income is hiding all that perfectly, but the income levels would finally show that.
Yeah, Dominic.
Could I say, change and development and the way we develop, I think it's a central role of government. I'm sorry, I'm dyed in the wool, I'm a traditional government person. I think the lessons that have been learned, I'm Irish actually, and I was part of the transformation of Ireland from you can say, an agricultural country very rapidly to where it is today. And one of the things was looking around and learning from accelerated development and what's needed. And the single biggest part of that was planning. And the biggest part of the planning in the transformation of the Irish economy was integration. Was integrating our land use, our urban development. I'll be honest with you. I was the author, co-author of the Dublin Plan in the early 80s. You could not open a business. It was one of the most desolate cities in Europe. Yet we were able to transform into the fastest growing urban area in Europe in the 90s with a very good plan. And I can't emphasize, I firmly believe in strategic planning, that it's taken from the high level, but with a very clear implementation and regulatory role down to every single project that emanates from that plan. And if there's any piece of advice, is planning and strategic planning and translating into implementation. Learn from the mistakes made by everyone else, particularly learn from the successes of countries that have transformed in a generation. And believe me, it was a simple generation from a very, very low level to a very, very high level. Learn how that was done and what are the lessons that can be used in whatever country, whoever is listening to this right now. It is possible, and I firmly believe in the power of strategic planning. Thank you.
Enrique, all these projects which are going on, we are talking about the model of ESCO, we are talking about public-private partnerships, because government cannot handle everything on the project on its own. So when we talk about this waste management or the energy, is Ras Al Khaimah government looking from the ESCO model?
Well, the answer is a little bit yes and no. And let me explain that, why I say that. So yes, it is aligned with certain principles of it. So we are also implementing a lot of activities and initiatives on waste management. So we are, first of all, trying to use some of the waste that it is, collected for industrial processes, for instance, furnaces, where we are deviating roughly 5% of the fuel that is consumed is now waste. Different types of waste, obviously, and we want to increase that value in the future. So that does not necessarily follow any particular ESCO model, because again, we are taking sources of waste that we manage at a kind of an emirate level and redirect them for a better usage rather than putting it in the landfill. But also we are working with some entities also for similar types of ESCO projects, more related to conversion of waste to energy, and use it as a kind of a power source. No? On an aspect that is also relevant, we are also recycling and refurbishing a lot of the construction waste. No? So there is a lot of waste generated by that, you can say, stream, which also has a very high recycling and reusing potential. No? So for some waste sources, that potential is lower. So we need, again, to find other ways of handling it and dealing it. But for this particular waste source, which is actually one of the most relevant in the Emirate, the level of recycling and reusing is actually extraordinarily high. So we have started operation in an AMREF facility a few years back, where we are channeling a lot of these wastes. And then, of course, I think on all of these initiatives, we also go to the kind of local population level. Mruto was saying a lot about these composting. We try to incentivize it at individual level. We have kind of a guideline on how you can do it at your home, you know, and we try to also lead by example. I also do it in my home. And these kind of small initiatives are also tried to be passed on to the relevant industrial stakeholders. So for instance, in our case, the Emirate also has a very strong hospitality sector where many hotels are there. And we have kind of pushed these food treatment, food recycling, food processing, as you want to call it, to be installed in every kitchen that is there. So instead of gathering that waste, putting it somewhere else so that we can then pick it up in, say, a truck and then taking it to somewhere else, even in the end to be done something useful with it, we are trying to do it at source, no? So that now we don't need to carry it over, we don't need to do anything with that. At source, it is being, digested in some cases, compostized in other cases. So there are different, again, technologies that handle it in different ways. And then in the end, you use that resulting product for something useful for the hotel in this case, kind of wastewater that you can use for the irrigation, or composting that you can use for the landscaping. There are many different, applications. No?
Now, Alejandro, again, I'll come back to you. When we talk about the projects, the finances are the key. When you go in a typical finance model, the lenders or the banks are looking for the return on investments. While such projects, which are social projects, we cannot really generate the return on investments of the other scenario. So what sort of different models for financing of social projects like this are available?
Well, it's a big field of innovation now in the financial industry, not only thanks to technologies, but also mindset in the finance world. So today the world is revolving around impact finance. This is just a word, impact finance. But if you go down into the industry, if you speak to banks and you speak to investors, you will realize it's all about data and hardcore data. And this is new, even to me, since I started a lot of work in the field we did was called microfinance. Well, microfinance paved the way more and more to understand financing in general, how sensitive it has to be to, and tailored it has to be to each case. So while the UN speaks of SDGs, and most ministers and governments will speak about SDGs, the financial industry is speaking about ESGs. And the ESGs, or is speaking about, which I hope to believe is emerging, a new set of indicators that is being developed called the IRIS model, IRIS. So IRIS is becoming a third set of indicators for finance to understand where to put the money. So now there is 3 sets of indicators where cities can work with. They can work with SDGs, they can work for development finance from development banks, for mostly loans. If you want to speak about loans for an SME, for startups, then you are speaking about other type of indicators. Probably you're looking at IRIS indicators, because these indicators were designed for SMEs who are starting to innovate their products or services. So today the financial industry is at the beginning of a new mentality to invest in the future. My background, which you did not mention, but it's no problem, is finance, actually. And one thing I've learned in 25 years is that it's only now that finance is being very innovative. It's I think an explosion of innovation in the financial industry, how to bring finance to all types of investment projects, very micro, medium to large, in a blended form with loans and equity and all types of risk taking. And entrepreneurs today, and I know many of them, are young people with brilliant ideas. They have, which I did not have if I were young in those days, all these sources of financing. But I need to make sure I am able to prove my story, prove my performance through indicators. So the word is called impact finance. The technology behind it is called fintech. These are blockchains and so forth, technologies, cloud computing, and so forth, providing the data, providing the connections. But I think my statement for this discussion group would be, it's a mindset, what has emerged. 3 years ago, no, now it's more than 3 years, 2000, yeah, it's about 4 years ago, there was a famous conference for finance. It was in Ethiopia. It was called Financing for Development. And today, I printed it out, and I think everybody here can download these things. Today, we're at 5 years after the SDGs, yes? And now there are reports coming out. Where are we on each SDG? Yeah. And one set of SDGs are around the finance. And I think it's good. Financially speaking, today we have a lot of options for enterprises and for local authorities, how to finance their projects.
So when you say it is impact financing, how does it differ from result-based financing or RBF? It's the same thing or it's different?
You know, the larger concept is impact finance, but RBF, result-based financing, anybody can Google this. There's a bit of a science now in this, but this is performance-based financing. There's just another word. However, there are certain instruments now being used. For example, an impact bond. These are, you can call them kind of bets a city can make to the private sector. Right now, for example, in Vienna, there is an impact bond going on for refugees. So there are many ways to integrate refugees into the community. But the question is, what's working? So the city of Vienna stopped investing in all these ideas. They now are doing this through impact funding, and they are bringing small rewards to those companies that are able to prove that their model of integration is working. So I can Google this right now. Probably there's this prize closes this Friday. This is how, again, Vienna works. There's a prize right now where everybody can participate. If you have an idea, you don't need money. So if you have a nice idea, you can participate in this fantastic world where cities now are asking for ideas, and the instrument they're using is called a bond. You must raise the funding. You must bring the funding to your idea. But if you are successful and you can prove success as you progress, you are rewarded very, very nicely. So banks are very interested to finance these enterprises that are taking up impact bonds. So impact bond is one instrument of this world called impact finance.
Okay, I think we're running short of time. We are supposed to go with the question and answers. But before that, I just would like to talk, like we are talking about financing as such. But then the traditional model or conservative model of multilateral development banks, I was just reading the reports that asset to equity ratio for this multilateral development banks is in the range of 1 to 1.9 asset to equity ratio. While if you talk about Chinese bank, that is China Development Bank or Chinese Exim, their asset to equity ratio is 1 to 5.4. So they're lending much more. And then that's how a lot of countries are finding it easier to get the funding from China. And that's a different ballgame altogether, how the things are moving in the world. We'd like to keep ourselves away from that. But then to follow that, the finances need to be made available for such projects in a much better way. While saying so, as we are running short of time, I will request for the question and answers. Rahul, For the panelists, if you have some question answers, we should go for that.
Yeah, sure. Alejandro, the first question is actually to you. Like economy and society of sustainability are also two key aspects. So, are governments or United Nations organizations such as UNIDO, UNESCO, UNDP, or relevant companies doing anything concrete to achieve sustainable development goals related to economy and society, other than just environment?
Absolutely. Actually, I don't want to read this, but I don't want to invent numbers. That's something, again, back to data. So today there is please download it, whoever is asking these questions. There is a very comprehensive study on each indicator. And now it's not just economy, it's also SDG 1, 2, 3, health, education, poverty, gender, inequality, and all these things. There's a good now take or putting the pulse on these SDGs. And the largest critique I read here in this report this morning, because it was only downloadable recently, the strongest critique, the statement is we are not reaching the SDGs. So we are failing to reach the SDGs is the conclusion of the report. But on some fronts we are. On the environment, we're doing better than we thought, actually.
Thanks to India.
Yeah, so the SDGs, you have to very carefully speak about each one for their own sake, because it's a big word. But I think my response would be, please, audience, read the good reports that are coming out and participate in the dialogue. There's a website called the SDG Community. Everybody can participate. And believe me, when I was at UNIDO 2-3 years ago, I had many interactions with many experts through these volunteer type platforms.
There is actually another wonderful question which has been put across. Like, what is the biggest thing that needs to be changed in the way we carry out our day-to-day activities to achieve a sustainable future? I think this should go to the entire panel, actually. Enrique.
Amruta, you inspired me. I will start this today.
Okay.
So that's my answer.
Enrique, the question is, what is that one thing you would like to suggest to everyone?
What I would like to suggest is for people to stop making excuses, no? There are a lot of things that we can do simply, just by wanting to, no? But it's far easier to say I can't because of X, Y, Z, no? So my challenge would be to lower your, let's say, barriers in your mind and choose one thing, just like Amruta said a very good thing about this composting. Why don't we do all of it, no? If all of us did that, then we will certainly be contributing positively, no, to the outcome.
Gopal, what is that one take you would like to give to the whole audience?
Yeah, I'll put it this way. I think, sustainability and green has always been a very B2B led one, right? So the minute we convert into a B2C, it's exactly what all the panels are saying. So as an individual, if I start questioning, are all my touch points in my lives, right? So it starts at home, right? It starts in the school where my kids are studying. It starts with the transit I'm using to work. It's a workplace. It's a restaurant eating. So if all these touch points can be, if I can demand green, and imagine the power, right? I mean, if you remember earlier, we never used to bother about which planes we are flying. Today, we all know whether we are flying a Boeing, whether we are flying an Airbus, right? So the minute you convert into a B2C, the minute the consumers start asking, there will be the multiplier effect.
Amruta, one line.
Firstly, I want to say, Alejandro, it is very humbling what you said, because there is so much to learn from you. But yeah, coming back to the answer, I feel all of us, we are consumers, of course. So I would say every time we purchase something, we consume something, we waste something, we are casting our vote. So cast that vote wisely. And one more thing, please, I want to add, in all of us professionally, whatever we are doing in whatever field and whatever level, we definitely do have, we definitely could contribute towards sustainability. So please explore those opportunities. Thanks.
So Dominic.
The scarcest resource, I've heard this said, the scarcest resource in the future is human attention. Get off social media, stop listening to the fake news, rely on and search for the science and the emerging science, and stop listening to the noise that surrounds us all, and try and keep attention. Because I found, and I'm doing the grumpy old man here, I found the new generation, the attention span with social media and all of the noise that's going on, it's very, very difficult to hold on to attention. So the one-liner is pay attention, and pay attention to the detail in every level. I think I mentioned it to you. When I heard that Notre Dame Cathedral was being repaired, I said to my wife, if they don't pay attention, they will burn the building down. I am sure that there will be some stupid mistake made because attention is not being paid. And that is the lesson, pay attention.
Rishikesh?
I would like to carry what Amrita said, that we all are professionals. We all impact many, many things in our daily life. You, Sagar, you are part of so many projects. I am part of so many projects. If we have that kind of one particular concern, that whether my advice is not just as per my invoices, but with my consciousness that I am really adding something to that. If we do that in our own sphere of life, I think we will impact sufficient people around. So my only takeaway from this conference, and what my suggestion would be, just look at opportunities here in your own professional life, because daily life we impact our own family. In professional life, we actually impact quite a bigger part of the world. Yeah, and so if we just don't look at my scope of work and invoices and go just beyond that, I'm sure I think we can, even the people in this panel can make a sufficient difference.
We'll take one last question. That is to you, Gopal. Like certification is one part and actual implementation or performance is the other part. So actual inspection and validation of data intent is important. So what do you have to say about that?
I mean, I think that's something which I addressed it at the beginning. So, which Sagar also spoke about, the fact that we launched a platform called the ARC platform. So, which is a technology-led platform where data is going to determine the certification, or let's say the performance of a building. And the same data will determine moving towards net zero. All the concepts, whatever you're going to have, is all going to disappear in front of the data. The second thing, what I want to talk about the data is the same technology, but I don't know how many architects are on this call, but the technology platform is also going to be defining your future design. So can design become more efficient? Can design bring more results? Yes. If you're going to take that data back to design, that's going to work. The third is somewhere, I think we talked about a lot of technology. The platform now should have AI on the top of it. So can we develop AI? Because we have done an open source platform. So we welcome all the IT professionals, software people to write AI platforms, to have control measures so that buildings, cities, and communities which are using these platforms can become more efficient as well.
With that, I'll request Mr. Sagar to conclude the proceedings.
We have a lot of questions, but I believe the time is a constraint.
Yes.
Let's run through what exactly we analyze and go through. See, when we talk about the sustainability, we are handling it at multiple level. As we have talked about at individual level, we are all talking about responsible consumption. We all mentioned that the consumption has to be done. So we have talking about values and then behaviors. When value, at times we care a lot for the environment, nature, the government regulations, but at behavioral aspect, if we don't follow that, there'll be challenge. So values has to get overlap with the behavior, which will give integrity. So environment caring has to get reflected by using personal energy resources, as even Amrita was mentioning. Try to utilize the waste at personal level, avoid the shortcuts for the personal benefits. So those are the aspects which we have to imbibe at a personal level when we talk about the energy use as well as the waste management. When we talk about organizational level, as Mr. Gopal was saying, the things which are not monitored cannot be controlled. So monitoring is required. So at organization level, we need to identify your energy consumptions, waste consumptions. We need to identify the energy efficiency measures, establish the targets for the organization year on year. How can we reduce our energy? I think there are various platforms available with GBCI. We can have energy audits. With all technology coming through, we can establish a baseline and monitor that with energy audit, and that performance review can be done. The people need to have the proactive management. We should not be reactive. We should go a step further with available data, available technology, and have proactive management. Whatever we build to maintain, we spend a lot, but then normally that area is left open for the damage. So we need to have well-trained facility management. We need to have the vigilant administrator. The data is available, it has to get transferred to information from data to the delivery. Then only that data can be effectively used. Otherwise, it will become junk. Adoption of technology at all levels. We are all talking about fourth industrial revolution. We are all talking about digitization. Organizations need to adopt the technology, as well as the key aspect in the whole development is the occupant. He should be educated and he should be made responsible, and awareness campaigns need to get conducted at organization level. When we talk about construction sector predominantly, which we're discussing about, again, we are talking about technology. We need to adopt the BIM concepts where we are trying to have minimal wastage. There are energy models being established, which will give the benchmarking platforms. We are talking about new materials which are coming day in, day out with technological products, which we have to be open to accommodate in our projects, as well as to evaluate their impacts on the environment. Resource management, with kind of digitalization going on, with kind of fourth industrial revolution we are talking about, we are not talking about adoption of change. We are talking about the rate of change. The things are going to change very fast. So the resources, the management, the people need to be very adaptive. If we are not adaptive, they are going to face challenges for yourselves. Climate responsive architectural, as we are talking about the coastal area, the hilly area, the desert areas, it has to be climate responsive architecture. Detailed engineering will take a place. Now we have a lot of models, we have a lot of details available, baseline programs. So a lot of compliances, as Alejandra was mentioning, that we need to have a lot of codes compliances. So that will come into picture, which is part of standardization. When we talk about costing, let's not work out only the first cost of initial cost. As a development, if possible, we are supposed to look at the complete life cost analysis as a project. So moving further, at a suggestion level, at a regulators, at the policymakers, we need to have sector-wise guidelines. I know it's a big task to frame guidelines, but then we are just trying to have an open protocol of communication where we'd like to say what exactly industry is looking for. So we'd like to have sector-wise guidelines for sustainability, what exactly can be done to make it easier for people to adopt. We are talking about benchmarking system need to get adopted. If governments or the regulations adopt the platforms like ArcScoru, or there is something Energy EQ from the ASHRAE we are talking about. So such platforms will certainly help people to adopt it easily. We are talking about simple procedures for compliances instead of fitting into too much difficult scenarios. To that matter, in GCC, they are very simple. I'm talking more of India. where compliance should be made easy so that people are more motivated to comply towards it. And again, everything starts with a demonstration. If authorities and government start demonstrating, as UAE has been doing at the Platinum City, we are talking about the solar farms, concentrated solar farms we are talking about for DEWA. So those implementation, that will create awareness, that will move towards adoption of new technology and products. We have to have detailed verification, and we should be open for public-private partnership, or I'll say in Dominic terms, public-private platforms, where people should come and work together with the government to get the sustainable goods. What's happening actually at a level? It's basically a data and a processing. At an individual level, we are having so much data, and we need to adopt. We are generating the data. Look at Facebook, look at the Twitter, and look at the TikTok. They're just taking individual data and feeding what you're looking for. So there's a lot of data processing going on. At an organizational level, we have to have that transformational impact. We are talking about adoption of new standards. We are talking about the manpower has to get skilled manpower. They have to be always on toes. At city and community level, again, we are talking about big data, real-time data, which has to get transformed. So it's getting technology-centric thing. Governance, it all talks about current requirement, current details, current consumptions. So it's all real-time data they're utilizing to manage the governance. Finances, again, Alendra has mentioned, it is result-based finances. We're talking about carbon finances. We're talking about green finances. We're talking about result-based aids. So again, at the bottom of it, it's all data. And who are the drivers for all this? All corporate houses. This digitization, this fourth industrial revolution has created all this thing, and which is a base for scenario. We all talk about positive aspects of it. Let's embrace this, the requirements of the time and move further. Adoption is the only way towards sustainability. So we need to adopt these technologies and get ourselves tuned towards to achieve the goals. So at every level, from individual to the government to the UN level, it's all about data management, it's data processing. It's part of fourth industrial revolution. Let's move further with that towards establishing the SDGs in a better way. While saying so, we have finished all three webinars. There was an attempt to create awareness. We discussed right from individual level to policy level to organizational level. We discussed to the UN level. We tried to cover whatever we can in a given short period of time. We are again saying communication will only lead to action. We are open for all sort of communications, feedback, suggestions, ideas, concepts, requirements. Any communication has to be done with and let a timely answer. Please communicate on our email sustainability@consistentconsultant.com, and we'll be happy to get connected and talk to you. With that, I would like to thank all the panelists once again, along with all attendees who have been supporting us. We have more than 150 attendants, 170 attendants even today. I would like to thank our media partners, CPI, who is the publisher of Climate Control Magazine in Middle East. I would like to thank Distalio for their support and contribution, and would like to conclude the webinar series today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And due to shortage of time, we could not answer all the questions, but we'll make sure that we reply to them shortly. Thank you to all the speakers and the guests for being on the webinar, and it was a wonderful experience, and the information that was shared will be definitely helpful. Thank you. Thank you to all.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.